She didn't go to Strand for protection. She went because someone had tried to kill her twice in the same Tuesday, and she was 31 weeks pregnant, and she was completely out of road. The cab driver, a heavy-set man with a Bear's air freshener swinging from the mirror, had taken one look at her when she'd climbed in outside the Ypsilanti bus station, at the enormous curve of her stomach straining the zipper of her coat, at the split on her lower lip she hadn't had time to clean up, and he'd said nothing. He'd driven the full length of I-94 into Chicago in total silence. When he pulled up in front of the Strand Industries building on North Michigan Avenue, he glanced in the rearview mirror and asked quietly, "You need me to wait?" Cora looked at the black glass tower, 42 floors. The lobby alone was larger than the apartment she'd been renting in Ann Arbor for the past 7 months. She had worked in this building for 2 years. She knew every camera angle in the lobby, every shift rotation of the security team, the exact dimensions of the 14th floor, where the real business was conducted behind frosted glass and locked doors. She had not planned to come back. No, she said. She paid him in cash. She'd paid for everything in cash since March, and she got out into the November wind. The air off the lake hit her like a door slamming. She pulled her coat tighter, though the zipper had stopped reaching her stomach 6 weeks ago. Underneath, she wore a grey maternity top she'd picked up at a Target in Toledo when she'd been running north and needed something that fit. She had no luggage. The bag she'd packed that morning was sitting in the grass off Route 12, inside the silver sedan that had driven her off the highway into a guardrail at 60 miles an hour. She'd walked away from it. The baby had kicked steadily through the whole ordeal, as if it already understood the kind of world it was being pushed into and had decided to be furious about it early. Cora pressed her palm flat against her stomach and walked through the revolving door. The lobby security guard, broad-shouldered, mid-50s, a man named Carl, who had always waved her through without making her badge, looked up from the desk. He didn't recognize her at first. Her hair was shorter. She was 30 pounds heavier. She'd stopped wearing the clothes that made people look twice. Then the recognition landed, and she watched his face go through 5 expressions in under 3 seconds. "Mrs. Ellison," his voice came out stripped. "Tell him I'm here," Cora said. She set her tote on the counter and waited. She was not going to explain herself to Carl. She was not going to explain herself to anyone in this building until she was sitting across from the one person whose signature on a problem made the problem stop existing. "I'll wait right here." Carl was already pressing 2 fingers to his earpiece. Felix met her at the elevator bank. Roman Strand's right hand was a lean, precise man who wore the same expression to every situation, a watchful blankness like a surgeon in the middle of a procedure, entirely committed and entirely unreadable. She had never seen Felix surprised. In 2 years, she had not seen his face do anything unexpected. It did something unexpected now. He stood at the open elevator door and looked at her face, pale and tight with exhaustion, at the split lip, at the enormous curve of her stomach underneath the insufficient coat, and the blankness fractured. "Cora," he said. It wasn't a greeting. It was the sound a person makes when something they'd believed to be impossible turns out to be standing in front of them. "Felix." She stepped into the elevator. Her lower back had been a continuous grinding ache for the past 4 hours. Office or conference room. Felix stepped in beside her, hit the button for 14, said nothing. But she caught his eyes dropping to her stomach in the mirrored elevator panels, and then snapping away, fast, the way people look away from accidents on the highway. That involuntary flash of something too large to process. She offered him nothing, let him sit with it. Roman Strand was on the phone when she pushed open the glass door. He was standing at the window that faced the lake, his back to her, in a dark charcoal suit that probably cost more than 6 months of the rent she'd been paying in Ann Arbor. He was 43. He had run the North Shore operation since he was 31, after his father died of something that wasn't officially listed as a homicide. He had a scar along his left jaw from a meeting in 2019 that had gone wrong fast. He was, in Cora's professional assessment, the most controlled human being she had ever worked for. The kind of man who did not raise his voice, because he had never needed to. "I'll call you back," he said, before she had made a sound. He'd always had that quality, knowing before he should. He ended the call and turned around. Cora had rehearsed this moment across 7 months and roughly 400 sleepless hours. She had run the conversation like a spreadsheet. Inputs, variables, likely outputs. She had prepared for his anger. She had prepared for the cold, methodical version of his fury that didn't shout, but instead got very, very quiet. She had even prepared for the small possibility that he would not react at all, that 7 months had been enough distance that he'd filed her away somewhere and moved on. She had not prepared for the way he looked at her. For one unguarded second, just one, Roman Strand's face did something she had never seen it do. The calculation dropped away entirely. Whatever was underneath it was not anger. Then his eyes moved down, to her stomach. The phone slipped out of his hand, hit the floor. He didn't look at it. He couldn't stop looking at her. Cora waited. She had learned, in 2 years of working for Roman Strand, that the most effective thing you could do when he was processing new information was let him process it. He worked through facts the way he worked through quarterly projections, completely, methodically, without skipping a line. She watched him do the math. 7 months ago, she had walked out of this building at 11:48 on a Wednesday night, with nothing but her laptop bag and the clothes she'd worn that day, through the parking garage exit, without a word to anyone. She had not left a note. She had not called. She had cleared her personal files, returned her keycard to her desk drawer, and walked out, because if she had waited until morning, she would not have been alive to see it. 7 months. He had gone completely white. Cora. Her name came out of him like something dragged up from deep water. What? "I need to sit down," she said. "My back has been in agony for 3 hours. Then I'll explain everything." She sat in the leather chair across from his desk. He stood 8 feet away and did not move toward her and did not move away from her. Felix had vanished. She'd heard the glass door close softly behind her, and she was grateful for the absence. "Who?" Roman said. His voice was a flat line. "Don't embarrass yourself," Cora said. Something shifted in his eyes. He crossed the room, planted both hands on the desk, and leaned forward until she could see the exact moment the control started to give. "You left," he said, "in the middle of the night. No call, no message, nothing. I had people looking for you for 2 months. "I know." "You know." He pushed off the desk, moved to the window, came back. She had never seen him pace. In 2 years, she had never seen it. "You know, and you're back now. 7 months later, looking like—" He stopped himself. His jaw was locked so tight the muscle beneath his ear was ticking. "Like I'm about to have your child," Cora said. The room went absolutely silent. She took a breath. She'd run this part of the script more than any other. In March, I found something in the subsidiary accounts. A payment structure I didn't recognize, running through the Calumet freight chain. Small enough to clear a standard audit. But I know your books, Strand. She held his eyes. I know every line. He had gone very still. "It was Dyer," she said, "your logistics director. 18 months of rerouted freight revenue into a shell company in Reno, and inside the same payment chain 4 wire transfers. Each one dated. I cross-referenced them with your calendar." She paused. "They were payments to a location service. Someone wanted to know where you would be, not approximate. Exact, down to the hour." Roman said nothing. "I sat with that information for 11 hours, Cora continued. "I didn't come to you directly, because if Dyer found out I'd seen it, I was dead before morning. And I didn't know yet whether he was working alone or whether there were others inside who were part of it. So I sent an anonymous tip through the Proton account your attorney uses for. The tip in April, quiet, stripped down. Yes. That was you. Yes." He looked at her the way he used to look at balance sheets when the numbers weren't resolving, like he was willing the data to clarify itself. "Dyer is dead," he said. We found the full network 3 months ago. 6 people. It's handled. I know. I followed it. Then why are you only here now? The question sat between them. Cora looked down at her hands resting on the curve of her stomach. Because when I sent that tip and ran, I didn't know yet. I found out 6 weeks after I got to Ann Arbor. She pressed her fingers gently against the hard swell, and I thought the safest thing I could do, for this baby, was stay invisible. If anyone inside your operation had reason to look for leverage against you. A child, Roman said, is the most obvious leverage there is. You know that better than I do. He was quiet for a long time. The grandfather clock in the corner of his office ticked through it. Outside, a grey November sky pressed down on the lake. Someone tried to run me off Route 12 this morning, Cora said. Twice. A silver sedan, no plates. I went into a guardrail. She watched his face do something controlled and dangerous. I don't know if it's a dire connection you missed or something separate. I don't know if they followed me here or if they already knew this was the only place I'd eventually come. She exhaled, slow and deliberate, because if she didn't control her breathing right now, she was going to fall apart in front of Roman Strand. And she was not going to do that. What I know is that I have been running for 7 months, and I am 31 weeks pregnant, and this morning I almost died on an empty highway, and I have nowhere else to go. Roman turned away. He walked to his desk, stood over it with both hands flat on the surface, looking at something that wasn't there. Then he picked up the phone, the real one, the one that didn't log, and called Felix. Traffic cameras on Route 12, Ypsilanti Corridor, 6 to 8 this morning. Silver sedan. I want plates in 20 minutes. A pause. And get Penn on the phone. Tell him to be here in an hour with the portable unit. He ended the call. He sat down across from her. The expression on his face was not one she had a category for. It was not the boardroom face. It was not the negotiation face. She had seen it exactly once before, in February, when they'd both stayed late over the Q4 reports, and he'd looked up from the desk and said, without any preamble at all, I don't know why I keep an apartment in this building if I never leave the office anyway. You should have come to me, he said. You would have kept me here. Yes. And I would have been a visible target. You know the math on that, Strand. He didn't answer, which was the only answer she needed. I'm not here to argue about March, she said. I'm here because I need somewhere safe while I figure out who was in that car this morning. That's all I'm asking for. Roman looked at her for a long moment. Then he opened the desk drawer and set something on the wood between them. A key card, black unmarked, the residential floor. The apartment, he said. Not a room. I'm not negotiating on that. Everything is negotiable. Not this. He came around the desk and stopped 2 feet from her, looking down at the enormous swell of her stomach with an expression she had never seen on him and couldn't name. Something cracked open and undefended. He reached out, slowly, and then stopped himself. Can I? She had never heard Roman Strand leave a sentence unfinished. She took his hand and pressed it flat against her stomach, just below her ribs. They stayed still. 5 seconds. 8. The baby moved, a long, rolling shift from inside. Slow and deliberate, entirely unbothered by the armed building they were standing in, entirely unbothered by the violence that had already tried to reach them once today. Just turning over, settling in, comfortable and utterly certain of its own right to exist. Roman's hand went rigid against her. He didn't speak for a long moment. She watched his throat move. Strong, he said. His voice had lost every hard edge. Has been since June, Cora said. Doesn't stop. He did not take his hand away. Dr. Penn arrived 50 minutes later with a portable ultrasound unit and the practiced calm of someone who had learned not to ask questions inside Strand Industries. He examined her on the couch in the 38th floor apartment, while Roman stood against the far wall with his arms crossed, watching with the focused attention of a man reviewing a critical contract. Blood pressure running low, baby measuring exactly on schedule, heartbeat at 144 beats per minute, steady and clean and emphatic. Roman said nothing through the examination, But when Penn pressed the wand to her stomach, and the monitor filled with the small shadowed architecture of the baby, the curved spine, the rounded skull, one fist pressed up near the chin as if already bracing for an argument, she heard Roman Strand exhale. It was the quietest sound she'd ever heard him make. When Penn left, Roman sat on the edge of the coffee table across from her. His tie was loosened. She had never once seen his tie loosened. "Plates came back," he said. "The sedan is registered to a freight broker out of Gary, one of Dyer's subsidiaries. We missed one in the cleanup." His jaw tightened once and then went flat. "Felix is handling it now." "How long?" "By morning." He said it the way he said everything that was certain. "You'll never hear the name again." Cora looked out at the city going dark beyond the glass. The lake already invisible in the early November black, the lights coming up across the north shore like a grid she had once memorized for a man who had never asked to. "I know I can't promise you the danger is gone permanently," Roman said. He was looking at the window instead of her. She'd noticed he did that when he was being honest about something he didn't want to be honest about. "I can't stand here and tell you there will never be someone else who sees you as an angle to reach me through. That's the reality of what I built." "I know what the reality is," Cora said. "I worked the books for 2 years. I know exactly what you built." He turned to look at her. "I just ran the numbers differently than I used to," she said. She looked down at the enormous, warm, improbable weight of her stomach. "Turns out some things aren't about the risk calculation." The apartment was quiet. 38 floors below, the city moved through its own business. Somewhere inside this building, Felix was making sure that the man who had driven a silver sedan into her on a Michigan highway would not need to be considered again. The world Roman Strand lived in had its own terrible logic, and she had understood that logic long before February, long before Ann Arbor, long before the pink line on a test she'd taken alone in a gas station bathroom outside Toledo. She had understood it, and she had run the numbers, and she had made her choice. Roman reached across the space between them and took her hand. He held it with the same careful, deliberate attention he brought to everything that mattered to him. Nothing performed, nothing wasted. Just certainty. Cora leaned back into the cushions. She let her eyes close. For the first time in 7 months, the numbers in her head went quiet, and she let them.